the MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
Teller is here for a special Halloween breakdown for UFC 244, one of the most epic cards that we've seen put together in a long time. I think you could really put this card with some of the all-time cards, the all-time great cards, really. Top to bottom, bottom to top, this card is just epic. There's so many fights that I'm looking forward to seeing, even some of the very early fights. So it's going to be a very gory, bloody, horrific type of fight card, which fits perfect for a Halloween weekend, UFC event. So I'm really excited. I know you guys are as well. And, we'll be getting into the breakdowns here in a minute. And before we do that, we'll take a look back at last weekend. We had UFC Singapore. I went 1 out of 2 for my bets. Won 1, lost 1. I had Movsar Evloev. Hopefully you guys were on to that fight as well. That guy is a true stud, and he's a top prospect. The fight actually played out a little bit closer than I thought it would, but still, unanimous decision all day, Movsar. So I hope you guys jumped on that play. And then I did have Ben Askren. In the main event, and I'll tell you what, in the second to third round, I really thought I had that fight in the bag towards the beginning of the third or whatnot. I thought Maia was just going to start to gas out, and I thought the wrestling was really going to start to take into play. I thought Ben Askren would be able to get on top and just wear Maia out and finally start to rain some ground and pound, but that just was not the case. Maia is just, he was the superior grappler. And in my mind, at this point, he's the greatest grappler in UFC history, probably in MMA history. I really would go out on a limb and say that. So, no harm, no foul, though. The card was pretty much a stalemate, but, shout out to Demian Maia. I was wrong on Ben Askren. I thought that this was a guy that would come in and really, make an impact on the welterweight division, but I still think he has the ability to do that. I think it's just the cards didn't really, they didn't really fall out too good for him. They didn't really, he didn't really get dealt the best card. It's kind of his fault, though. He played the Jorge Masvidal fight the wrong way, got caught with that flying knee, and then I got matched up against the greatest grappler of all time that, showed him a trick or two in regards to grappling. Beautiful reversals when Maia was on his back, just beautiful. Threw the hooks in with his legs and just was reversing Askren just at will, basically. Going for heel hooks, reversing him with heel hooks, getting on top. It was just a beautiful display of grappling. So shout out to Demian Maia, a true class act. And that's pretty much all I have to say about UFC Singapore. And now we get to break down UFC 244, and let's get it. So just as I said, this card is supremely stacked. We take a look at the first fight of the night. We got Julio Arce taking on Hakeem Dawodu. These guys can easily be on a main card slot right here. Both these guys are very entertaining fighters. They're fight finishers. They both have a world full of potential. And here they are fighting in the first bout of the night. So it goes to show you how stacked this card is. I'm a big fan of Julio Arce. I think this guy is very well-rounded. I think he has some of the best boxing in the game. He's very patient. He's an excellent counter puncher. And then you got Hakeem, who is just a straight nasty Muay Thai fighter. Some of the best striking that we've seen in the division as of recently. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna slightly edge the underdog here. I like Arce. I think Arce is just a little bit more game. I've seen him in fights where he's even kind of starting off a little slow, not looking the best for a couple seconds or whatnot. But, as the rounds start to take place, this guy just is continuously game. He rises to the occasion. He continuously wins fights. And then you have a guy like Hakeem, he's dropped the ball before, as you saw in the Danny Henry fight, where he just choked in that fight, quite literally, got put out with the guillotine, but after being caught with a counter shot in that fight. So, I just have a feeling that Arce would he'll be more game. He'll rise to the occasion in this fight. Something about him. And I really do believe that Julio Arce has a very bright future, and the sky's the limit with him. And I feel the same way for Hakeem. I think Hakeem is going to take a lot of guys out in the division. His striking is just really nasty. And I kind of see why he's the favorite here in some people's eyes. A lot of people they believe that, if you can't get Hakeem down to the ground, his takedown defenses look good, that he's just going to beat people up on the feet. Again, very close fight. The line's very close. I won't knock you either way, whatever way you guys are going with this fight. If you guys feel like you have a nice spot to make some money, go for it. But I'm going to take the dog here, Julio Arce. And I'll take Julio Arce by, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a counter shot, maybe even finishes the fight. His boxing is very good, as I stated, but don't get it twisted. His kicks are very good as well. You saw him in his last fight, or maybe that was 2 fights ago, a beautiful head kick. I don't even know how he got that leg up there. His opponent was so close to him, and he still whipped that leg up there. It was just a nasty knockout. And that actually wasn't his last fight against Julian Erosa. So, yeah, he's the real deal. Both guys are just very good strikers. I just think that Julio Arce might have a little bit of an edge if this fight goes to the mat. I like his grappling. I've liked what I've seen from him in the past on the mat with his jiu-jitsu. And that's a little bit of an X factor in this fight. That's kind of pointing me in the direction of Arce. But again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's an extremely close fight. I won't knock you either way you guys go with this fight, but I'm going to edge the dog Arce, or, the so-called dog in this fight. In the next bout, we got Lyman Good taking on Chance Rencountre. If there was a weak spot on this card, maybe this is the fight right here. But I'm not trying to hate at all. I mean, this fight's it's not a bad fight. Lyman Good, this guy's been around forever. This guy's a solid dude. Chance Rencountre, he's been winning fights, so he's getting a good spot right here, to see if he can keep putting W's on his resume. Lyman Good, this is a guy, don't get it twisted, he's coming off a loss, but it was against Damian Maia. Yeah, he did get strangled pretty quickly in that match, but again, Damian Maia is probably the greatest grappler of all time, so don't look too much into that. And before that, Lyman Good, he handles business. He wins fight after fight. The guy, he has a very nice resume. He's 20 wins, 5 losses. The guy's been around the block, back from the Bellator days. Very athletic guy, very strong, very well-rounded. He can grapple, he can strike, and he can win fights. He takes guys out. He really does. Took Ben Saunders out with ease, as he should have. Did have the split decision loss to Zaleski dos Santos, but Zaleski is a very solid fighter. So, don't hold him to the fire too much for that fight. Chance Rencountre coming off a solid win against the Austrian Wonder Boy. But, in my opinion, that's the type of fights that Chance is going to look to win. Chance is a guy, he's a grinder. He's going to push the pace on these guys. He needs to fight guys that have bad cardio, guys that fade towards the later rounds, in my opinion, if he's going to continuously pull off these W's in the UFC. I don't really necessarily believe that Lyman Good is the guy for that. I think Lyman Good's going to be... he's going to be game. He really is. It's in his home state. I think he's going to have the cardio to go all 3 rounds, and he'll be a little bit more skilled in there. Striking will be a little bit better. And, it might play out closely, but I'm going to take Lyman Good to win that fight. So taking a look into the next fight, we got Katlyn Chookagian taking on Jennifer Maia. As I just touched up on this fight a little bit ago, as I said, if there was any weak spot on this card, maybe it was the last fight and this fight. But I'm being super picky because I feel like we're being spoiled with how good this card is, that, if we were to analyze any fights that are not really of that top caliber, like all the rest of the fights on this card, these are the 2 fights. But, nevertheless, this is still a solid fight. It really is. I mean, these are two flyweight contenders that are really trying to push. Actually, I wouldn't even say contenders. These are 2 girls that are really almost at the top of the heap at this point. So this is a big fight for both of them. Whoever wins this fight really could be knocking at the door for a title shot, believe it or not. So, and both girls, they're skilled. I can tell you exactly how this fight's going to play out. It's going to be a stand-up fight. It's going to be a point fighting, very, very closely contested matchup, and someone's probably going to win a split decision here. I basically feel like you can almost flip a coin because Jennifer Maia, her striking's been looking pretty good as of recently. Katlyn Chookagian, the deal with her, man, she's going to stand straight up and she's going to throw those, those little 1-2s. She's working on her boxing over there, with Frank Yeager's coach. you know, a true stud of the game, one of the best coaches in the game. So, you know, she's always getting great coaching, and, you know, her boxing's been looking better, you know, every time she steps in there. But same thing with Jennifer Maia, as I stated. Her boxing has really been looking good. So, yeah, I mean, I think the way to go on this fight is probably going to be taking the decision, as a lot of you guys know is the case with a lot of these girl fights. But sometimes the lines are just so high, it's like it's not even worth it. If I have to pick a girl here, I'm probably going to go with Chookagian. I just think that Chookagian tends to win a lot of these closely contested matchups, these stand-up wars. She has a good reach, and I could see her pulling off this fight. Jennifer Maia, her cardio is not the best. Sometimes she fades a little bit towards the third round. You know, but she came through nice. She came through nice for me in her last fight. Made some money on her, you know, against the, what's that girl's name with the glasses? You know, the Italiano, you know, the super nerd. So she came through in that fight. Her name is not ringing a bell to me right now, but you guys all know. Oh, Roxanne Modafferi. You know, she came through in that match, and, you know, believe it or not, a lot of girls fade to Roxanne Modafferi in those late rounds. They get taken down and they get grinded out. So Jennifer Maia looked good in that fight. She was holding her own, still stuffing takedowns and really piecing her up on the feet. But Katlyn Chookagian is not going to just take shots like that. She's going to be throwing right back at her. So we'll see how this fight takes place. I'm going to edge Chookagian. I think that she's game in these very closely contested matchups. Here we go. As far as I'm concerned, this is where this card just really starts to pick up momentum. From here on out, man, you don't want to miss a fight from here on out. We're going to be having a good time. Picture it right now. Throwing back some drinks. The card's picking up. We're getting closer to that main event. And in the meantime, we get to see entertaining fight after entertaining fight. I'm expecting a finish right here. I'm going to tell you guys straight up. We got Andrei Arlovski taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho, if you guys seen his last fight, for those of you guys that forgot about it, it was disgusting. One of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in quite some time. Took out Alan Crowder in that fight. And this guy's really just been taking guys out, you know, coming off 3 finishes in his last 3 fights. He's undefeated. I know he's only 7-0, but you could tell this guy is a nasty fighter, and he's a force to be reckoned with. And then you got the crafty veteran in Andrei Arlovski. This is a guy I'm a fan of. I like this guy a lot. He's a true OG. A lot of people thought that he was fading, you know, years ago, and that just didn't seem to be the case. All of a sudden, he got a resurgence in his chin. He could take a shot again all of a sudden. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I really have a gut feeling that you're going to start to see some of what we saw, you know, some years back, where you know, Arlovski was getting put out. You know, back in the day, he was getting put out by guys like, you know, Francis Ngannou, of course, took him out. Alistair Overeem took him out. Stipe Miocic. You know, he's, you know, even if you go way back, I'm talking about the old 2015 days. Excuse me, 2010, 2011. Back then, if you remember the Strikeforce days, you know, he was getting taken out by guys like Fedor. Back when Fedor was still doing his thing. Brett Rogers took him out. You know, he got finished by Sergey Karatanov. I mean, this guy really did have a problem with his chin years ago, for those of you guys that forgot. I don't think that that's necessarily something that just goes away, especially not against a guy like Jairzinho. So I could see Jairzinho connecting here and putting Arlovski out. Of course, there's always the possibility that Arlovski, as of recently, he's been doing that, just being if he steps up to the plate and he uses his craftiness and his gamemanship, if he's able to avoid that big shot and he makes it just a kind of a scrappy type of fight where he's mixing in a little bit of clinch work and whatnot, wearing on Biggie Boy over here, Jairzinho, maybe he can pull off the decision. But I'm really not seeing that. I see Rozenstruik just dominating this fight. Even if he doesn't get the knockout, I see him winning the exchanges on the feet. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make no bones about it. I'm definitely going with Rozenstruik here on this fight. And by the way, excuse me if I sound a little stuffed up, because I am fighting a little cold, but I will be good to go by this weekend. Don't worry about that. Glad this came in early before the weekend. So, but yeah, the pick's gonna be Rozenstruik for sure here. Brad Tavares making his UFC return, taking on Edmen Shahbazyan, the Edmen Taverdian product. For those of you guys that remember him, the old unibrow guy, Count Dracula. You know, mixing a little bit of Count Dracula in for this Halloween week. Ronda Rousey's ex-coach, who a lot of people hated on, but, you know, he's still got guys out, you know, fighting for him, representing him like this, because don't get it twisted, Edmen Shahbazyan, this guy is a true prospect. This guy is a very talented fighter. For those of you guys that are not familiar with him, this is a guy that was on the local jiu-jitsu scene in California. People were very high on him from a young age. He was subbing guys in his teens, just taking out grown men. His boxing has looked very crisp. His kickboxing, his kicks are good as well. This guy, the sky's the limit with him. The only little hiccup I've seen from him was against Darren Stewart. His cardio didn't look the best in that fight. Since then, he had 2 first-round finishes, so we still really haven't seen what his cardio looks like in the later rounds. But, I really don't even care. I'm still going to take him here because I've liked what I've seen from him, point blank. Brad Tavares is a very game opponent. I expect, Brad Tavares to be in there in the later rounds too, but I just think that Edmen will be a little bit more skilled in there and still pull this fight off no matter how it goes. Of course, Edmen has the possibility to end this fight early, as he does against any opponent in the UFC. That's how skilled this guy is. He has the jiu-jitsu game. He has the striking. The line's close in this fight too. It's basically a pick 'em. I think a lot of money's been coming in lately on Edmen, but yeah, I'm going to pick Edmen Shahbazyan to win this fight. Like I said, just a very well-rounded fighter with the sky being the limit for this guy. Really, the time will tell how far this guy's career is going to go. He does have the capabilities to be a champion. We'll see if he just keeps evolving with his overall game and steps up to the plate, and this will be a very good test for him. Brad Tavares is a very game opponent. Brad Tavares, his last 2 losses were against Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker, the 2 UFC middleweight champions that just duked it out not too long ago. That shows you what type of fighter that we're dealing with, because other than that, he just takes guys out all day. The Elias Theodoros and those types of fighters. Brad Tavares, you throw him in there with those average type middleweight fighters. Brad Tavares is going to handle business. He's going to take care of them. But I don't think Edmen Shahbazyan's that type of fighter. I think he's an above average fighter that can really wreak havoc in this weight division. So I'm excited for this fight. I really am, and I'm picking Edmen Shahbazyan to step up to the plate, and we'll see how we can get it done. Getting close to the main card. We got another entertaining fight here as we inch closer to that main card, and you could feel the energy coming from that main card. You could just hear it in the background, man. Some of those big names that are about to start coming up. In the meantime, we got a very entertaining fight. We got Shane Burgos taking on Makwan Amirkhani, who's looked good as of recently. Both these guys are very skilled fighters, very entertaining fighters. Shane Burgos, let's talk about him for a second. This guy, don't forget, not too long ago, this guy had a lot of hype behind him going into the Kelvin Kattar fight. And Kelvin, that guy Kelvin, man, Kelvin really stepped up to the plate, and he took Burgos out in that fight. But no real shame in that. Kelvin Kattar, in my opinion, is one of the top fighters right now in the division, and we're really going to see where he's at coming up very, very shortly here against Zabit. That fight's taking place over in Russia, and that's really going to show us where Kelvin Kattar is in his career. Just had to touch up on that here for a second. But then, Shane Burgos comes back, looked good against Kurt Holloway. He ended up getting the armbar. Did start off a little slow in that fight. And then against Cub Swanson, he had the split decision victory, which that fight could have gone either way. And, I had some money on Shane Burgos. That was one of my plays, for those of you guys that remember. And, I really didn't like the way that Burgos looked in that fight. I sent him a direct message. He actually seen it, too. I sent him a message. I said, look, you need to practice keeping your hands up. And if you guys run the tape back, you'll see what I'm talking about. This guy does not keep his hands up whatsoever, and that's going to be a major problem for him moving forward to the top of this division. I really do feel he will be put out by a lot of the guys at the top of this weight class, the same way he was put out by Kelvin Kattar. Cub Swanson was tagging him up at will. And now you're fighting a guy in Makwan who really rises to the occasion and doesn't shy away from putting anybody away. So, this guy, man, Makwan's a funny dude. Looked good in his last fight against Chris Fishgold. Submitted the BJJ black belt, and Chris Fishgold looked very good in that fight. Before that, took out Jason Knight. That was a very entertaining fight. Lost to Arnold Allen by a split decision before that. Arnold Allen is a very talented fighter. Trust me on that. And then before that, just handling work. So, yeah, Makwan's getting better every time he steps in there. He's 30 years old. He's right at the prime of his career. Shane Burgos, wants to keep that chin up there, it could be a big problem for him. I don't feel comfortable at all touching him at a -250 with what he did in his last fight. Yeah, I get it. I get that he's the favorite. That's to be expected. This guy, you know, he does have good striking, even though I'm talking about his chin issues, or excuse me, his defensive issues. The guy can throw back. You know, he's a very polished striker in regards to his offense output. But I just don't like that. I just don't like that chance of him being caught, you know, on the return, you know. You know, he has that Tiger Schulman striking that it's nasty. You know, the Muay Thai's nasty. He can throw some nice kicks and whatnot. His grappling's decent. He's a physical specimen. He's a very athletic type of fighter. But you know what? If I'm going to pick a big underdog on this card, I think this is the one right here, Makwan Amirkhani. I could see him, he takes chances in there. He's a risk taker. I could see him, you know, really rolling the dice in there, going for some really risky, dangerous type of strikes that if they connect, he's going to put Shane Burgos unconscious. If he doesn't catch him with something like that, yeah, Shane Burgos probably will, you know, take this fight, take a decision here and win this fight. I don't necessarily see Shane Burgos finishing Makwan. Makwan's a very durable, crafty fighter. You know, and I love the way that Makwan fights, man. He's on the fly. He just goes with whatever you give him. He don't give a shit in there, man. He's kind of like sparring, having a good time. And I don't think Shane Burgos is going to like that energy. So don't be surprised if Makwan pulls the upset. I guess I'll go with Makwan here. Here we go. We've reached those fights that we've been talking about, you know, from the beginning of this breakdown video. I mean, these are the fights that people are just going to be on edge for. We got Johnny Walker taking on Corey Anderson. I think this is a great matchup here. I love this, just the type of matchup we have here. We have the crazy, just exotic, wild type of striker that Johnny Walker is, taking on the basic, boring Corey Anderson, who's crafty, and he does his thing, and he wins a lot of fights like that. You know, he's a solid wrestler. You can't underestimate his wrestling at all. But then you got a guy in Johnny Walker that's just going to be on a whole nother atmosphere with his striking. He's just going to be in another world than Corey Anderson, and I really think it's going to fuck with Corey Anderson's head. But, you know, at the same time, Corey Anderson's going to have his game plan, and he's going to try to get those takedowns. And if Johnny Walker is going to lose this fight, you know exactly how this fight's going to play out. Corey Anderson's going to dodge the crazy strikes, the flying knees, the spinning back fists, and he's going to wear on Johnny Walker. He has to survive that early onslaught, and then he's going to start working the takedowns. And we'll see if he can grind Johnny Walker out. If Johnny Walker is going to win this fight, he's going to connect with something nasty. He's going to style on him on the feet. He has to be able to keep this fight on the feet. He can't fall on his back, you know, and just, you know, especially towards the late rounds, or as if he's tired, and you don't want him just sitting on his back getting grinded out. Maybe if it's early, I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Walker is as creative off his back as he is on the feet. I think that is something that we really haven't seen from him yet, but I would not be surprised, because this guy is just, he's something else. So, you know, don't be surprised if he throws up some crazy type of triangle or armbar. I really wouldn't be surprised with that. But, you know, what I see happening is I see Johnny Walker just being light years ahead of Corey Anderson on the feet and connecting with something nasty. How do you doubt this guy at this point in time, you know, what he's done out there? This guy is just, he's outclassed some of his opponents and just made them look like fools. You saw what he did to Misha Serkinov, the flying knee. Justin Ledette, that was just disgusting, with the hook kick and then hitting with the spinning back fist as well. Khalil Roundtree, he went out there, just clinched him, hit him with that Muay Thai elbow, put him out. Yeah, so like I was telling you, the only way I see Johnny Walker losing this fight is if he doesn't get that finish early and ends up getting grinded out. But I just don't see that happening. I like Johnny Walker here all day. If you're gonna bet it, try to get a decent line, you know, on Johnny Walker. I see a lot of money coming in on Johnny Walker as the week progresses, so be careful that the line doesn't get too high and you jump on him late. And you know, there is that chance of Corey Anderson. You know, he's a game fighter. There's that chance that he uses his craftiness and his wrestling abilities, and he could wear Johnny Walker out maybe. You know, we really haven't seen too much from Johnny Walker in those late rounds when he can't get that early finish. So be careful with that. But I hope that Johnny Walker goes out there, gets another ridiculous finish, and really gets the card just, you know, gets the card just fucking rolling and gets people ready for that main event, those co-main event spots. So yeah, Johnny Walker all day. Now, this is a fight that the teller is super excited for. This guy, Gregor Gillespie, if he's taking on Kevin Lee here, this guy, Gregor Gillespie, is a guy that I've been watching for a long time, from the very beginning, especially of his UFC career. This is a guy that I've been saying is going to be a future UFC champion. You can run the tape back, from cards upon card, from the past. I've said it from the beginning. You can pull up the tape. This guy, Gregor Gillespie, some of the best wrestling credentials you're going to see enter the UFC octagon. This guy's striking has jumped leaps and bounds every time that he stepped in there. The guy is a physical specimen. You watch the way that this guy trains, it's ridiculous. He mixes the weights up in there and everything. This guy is just a powerhouse. And I'm telling you, look up his wrestling credentials. This guy, it's almost as good as it comes stepping into the UFC. He's 32 years old. It's a good age. It's a good age. He's right at his prime. This is his time here. He takes out Kevin Lee here on a prime, major card spot. Everyone's going to know about him after this weekend. And, this guy might be the kryptonite for a guy like Khabib, because he's going to be able to wrestle with Khabib as well. And his striking is very good, too. Training over there with, Belmore Kickboxing. I believe he's put in some time with Ray Longo as well, here and there. The guy is just an absolute stud. And then you got a guy in Kevin Lee, who, in my opinion, is an overrated fighter. I've never been that high in Kevin Lee. I don't know why everybody is. People talked about him fighting like super fights and whatnot some time ago. I don't get it. Honestly, I've never been high in this guy. I think he's a basic meat and potatoes type of fighter. Has some good wrestling. His boxing is whatever. He's trained over there with the Money Team and all those guys at Floyd Mayweather's camp out in Vegas. But I'm just not a fan of this guy. He tried to step up to the plate against Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson just talk about a Halloween style finish, man. The elbows off his back, just butchered him up, got the finish. How about Ally Quinta? Ally Quinta, he styled on Kevin Lee on the feet. Ally Quinta's striking is okay. But you saw what happened to him in his last fight against a rangy hooker, which was a play of mine. Then Rafael Dos Santos, he wore on him, got the arm triangle choke. Expect to see something very similar to that. Expect an arm triangle choke. That's something that Gregor Gillespie does very well. Those typical type of powerhouse wrestlers, those power submissions, he pulls them off time and time again. Again, take note of Gregor Gillespie. I'm telling you, he's about to be 14-0 after this weekend. He just mauls his opponents. He takes out guys like Vince Pichel, Yancy Medeiros, Andrew Holbrook, Jordan Rinaldi. He just styles on those guys, goes in there and bullies them, and it's going to be no different. Even though it's a step up in competition against Kevin Lee, it's going to be no different. He's gonna work Kevin Lee on the feet. He's going to get takedowns. Trust me, this guy's going to get takedowns. As good as a wrestler as Kevin Lee is as well, he's going to maul him. He'll get takedowns. He's going to be he's a Khabib type of fighter. And they have different type of wrestling styles, but it's going to be he's a Khabib type of grappler in the sense that you're going to see him just outclass his opponents and just bully them up. So, I'm harping on this guy, Gregor Gillespie, but, it is what it is. This is how I feel about the guy, and I think he's going to come out here and dominate. So I'm very surprised where the line is as well. You can get him right now, minus 160, 165. I thought the line would be like minus 250. But that just shows you what people think of Kevin Lee. People, they know the name. They think this guy's is something, and he's honestly not. So run the tape back. I know a lot of you guys will be waiting to talk some shit to me. Run the tape back. Watch what Gregor goes out there and does this weekend. And expect him to get that win. And then I want a bigger name after that, of course. And this guy is knocking on the title contention. He's knocking on the door, so take note. All right, we got the Black Beast taking on the Bulgarian Beast. For those of you guys that don't know about Blagoy, this guy is an absolute beast. This guy, he was in a coma for weeks. This guy got stabbed in some bar or whatnot. This guy is, a real savage. This guy, one of the few men to ever defeat Fedor Emelianenko in a sambo bout. Excellent sambo skills, good boxing, just an absolute, an absolute warrior, a tough fighter. And then you guys know the deal with Derrick Lewis. This guy is just, he's always in a bout. Doesn't matter if he's getting his ass whooped. This guy can finish anybody at any given time, which it makes him a dangerous fighter to bet against, but also has cardio issues, and he fades time and time again a lot of time, very often. He fades in fights. He kind of gives up sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong. In some of those fights I'm speaking of, he did take some nasty shots, but he's just a little bit of he's an iffy type of fighter. Not a type of fighter that I ever want to have money on. I tend to stay away from Derrick Lewis at all costs. you're kind of always going for those Hail Mary victories when you have money on him. You need a haymaker to land. I'll tell you a crazy story because, the teller, he doesn't shy away from the truth at all. So, I was in Vegas for the McGregor-Khabib fight, and I was at a big party. I met a lot of people out in Vegas. I had people, I was giving out free plays, which it still ended up being a very profitable night. I had Khabib very big and got an excellent price, an excellent line on that. I had to do it. But one of my major plays, man, I had $1,000 tickets in my hands, man. I placed multiple bets on him, was Alexander Volkov. And that fight took place exactly how I thought it would the entire fight until the last 20 seconds, man. I'll be honest with you guys, Derrick Lewis, he crushed my heart in that fucking, the beginning of that pay-per-view event. One of the most epic comebacks of all time. But that's a fight, if they run it back, I guarantee you Volkov will dominate that fight the entire time. Just don't get caught by that haymaker, because, like I said, Lewis is always live. He's always live. If he connects, he's going to put you out. This guy Blagoy, though, this guy has a granite chin. I expect him to be a little bit more polished in there in regards to his cardio and his gamemanship. Blagoy, he'll just keep chugging along. This guy, he's going to keep brawling it out. You don't really fade. I'm going to lean Blagoy to win this fight. I just think he's a more game opponent. Capitalized him in his last fight and made a lot of people money on that fight and steered a lot of people from losing money. A lot of people were on that guy Tai Tuivasa, and I was just very emphatic about telling them not to touch that play. I was happy to see that because a lot of people, I knew about Tai Tuivasa from the beginning, and I was happy to warn a lot of my teammates out there. But yeah, man, here's the deal. If Derrick Lewis is going to win this fight, I think he has to get the knockout. Point blank, I think he has to get the knockout because Blagoy is going to push the pace. He's not going to just sit there and circle around and let Derrick Lewis win a decision like that. Blagoy will outpoint Derrick Lewis in the feet. He'll outvolume him. But what's going to happen when Derrick Lewis connects? Can Blagoy survive those shots? I'll say that he could, especially with a line like that, almost a pick 'em. I say he could. And I got Blagoy Ivanov winning this fight. Wow, what a matchup here. A real sleeper fight on this card. You got the Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson taking on the young Brazilian savage in Vicente Luque. This guy, Vicente Luque, I like this guy. One of my main plays not too long ago against Mike Perry. Some people thought that was controversy. It was a controversial type of fight. I completely disagreed. I thought Luque had that fight all day. And just rearranged Mike Perry's nose. It was just it was a very entertaining fight, and that's what Vicente Luque does. Vicente Luque, he goes in there to finish you. He's not shying away from a brutal fight. He'll take a couple shots to give some shots, and which is why I think this is a dangerous fight for the Wonder Boy here. And Stephen Thompson, coming off that disastrous knockout that Stephen Thompson took against Anthony Pettis. You got to wonder how he's rebounded from that. He's going to be eating some shots from Vicente Luque at some point in time in this fight. So will he be able to withstand the striking and survive this bout? Other than that, if he doesn't get finished, I'll take Stephen Thompson and a striking type of fight, going to the decision. I'll take him over basically anybody in the division. He's going to outpoint anybody. His striking is beautiful, and I expect him to win the exchanges on the feet against Vicente Luque. It's just going to come down to when Vicente Luque, like I said, when Vicente Luque cracks him with a shot, can Vincent put him away? Here's another thing, too. Don't sleep on Stephen Wonderboy. Don't sleep on his finishing capabilities. This guy can finish anybody as well. He has pinpoint accuracy, and Vicente Luque has been in a lot of wars. I understand he has a very solid chin, but there's only so much you could take, and if Wonderboy connects on the chin, he could put you out too. So I've seen Luque dropped time and time again too. I did say he has a granite chin, yeah, because he doesn't get finished a lot, but he's been getting dropped here and there. Don't forget, if you take a look into some of his more recent fights, one that comes to note, which was a very entertaining fight, was against Derrick Krantz. Don't forget, he did come back and win that fight, but Derrick Krantz dropped Vincent in that fight. You guys remember Derrick Krantz? He's the one that he got a golden opportunity from Dana White's looking for a fight. But the point I'm making here is that Luque has been dropped a couple times here, but he doesn't get finished though. That's the thing, Matter of fact, if you take a look at his resume, I don't believe that he's ever lost by way of knockout or TKO. So But again, don't be surprised if Thompson connects and puts him out. This is a fight that maybe you want to target, not going the distance. But I got Thompson to win the fight. And then I'll take Luque to win the fight if he can connect on that chin and get a finish. This isn't a fight that I'm necessarily looking to target to bet. Unless the line drops a little bit on Stephen Thompson, maybe it might be playable. Right now there has been a little bit of money coming on Stephen Thompson. And, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, hopefully Stephen Thompson get back in the win column here. So, Darren Till wants to enter the middleweight division. And, okay, you want to step up to the middleweight division. You have a big frame and whatnot. We'll throw you in with the little guy for the middleweight division. But a guy that's an absolute savage in Kelvin Gastelum, a guy that has pinpoint accuracy and connects on everybody. Let's check how your chin issues are after being put out by Jorge Masvidal. This is a tough matchup for Darren Till. You know he's going to eat some shots in this match one way or another. Kelvin Gastelum connects on everybody. And as good as Israel Adesanya has looked, as of recently, in his last fight against Robert Whittaker, it even shows even more so how impressive Kelvin Gastelum is. You saw him in that fight. That fight came down to the 5th round, and although Israel did pull that fight off, Kelvin just had a spectacular performance, and hats off to Kelvin. And you gotta lean Kelvin in this fight, and you can understand why he's the favorite here. Darren Till has had chin issues as of recently. Jorge Masvidal really put a stamp on that, and before that, Tyrone Woodley just put an absolute beating on him on the ground. Definitely rocked his chin up. I don't know. Moving up in weight could definitely help Darren Till out. I think he's going to be really big for the weight class still. I think he's going to be the way bigger fighter here. This guy's a beast. I think he definitely should be fighting at middleweight. Maybe it'll help his chin issues as well. I think, he'll be a little bit more hydrated in there, a little bit more of a solid fighter. But Kelvin Gastelum is just so much more fluid on the feet. I think he's a better grappler. He'll mix in his wrestling a little bit. And again, though, Kelvin did go through a war himself, so don't be surprised if Darren Till connects and starts to exploit some issues with Kelvin Gastelum's chin. I am a big believer when these guys go through these wars, that affects them. If you look at these fights, man, and from the past, you see it time and time again. 2-1 favorite in Kelvin Gastelum. A lot of people are saying this is a gimme. Oh, Kelvin Gastelum, easy money. I just don't necessarily see it, and I think there's some X factors in this fight in regards to Darren Till moving up in weight. The fact that Darren Till is a very dangerous fighter. He's a very skilled fighter. Don't forget, before he got finished by Jorge Masvidal, he was looking great in that fight. So, don't just sleep on this guy. This guy is a very game opponent. So I'm excited for this fight. I will edge Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight. I think that he's going to connect. His striking is just so fluid. Might be able to mix in a little bit of wrestling. I will not be surprised, though, if Darren Till goes up to the middleweight division and rises to the occasion and gets a big victory here. I will not be surprised. Mark my words on that. Have that for the record. Even though I'm picking Kelvin to win this fight, it's a very close fight. I think you just stay away from this fight here. Here we go. The main event of the evening. We got the baddest motherfucker title on the line. We got Nate Diaz taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Don't get it twisted. If you guys don't realize, this fight right here, this new belt they're going to have out there, the baddest motherfucker, this is a tournament style type of fight, because I'm telling you, Conor McGregor, he's taking on Cowboy Cerrone. He's taking him on January 18th. For those of you guys that are not up to date, McGregor's going to make quick work of Cowboy, and he will be fighting the winner of this bout. So we got a little four-way tournament here for the baddest motherfucker belt. Mark my words, you heard it here first. And, this is a really good fight. Nate Diaz taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. A lot of you guys are on Jorge Masvidal. I see it. You see the line. He's the favorite. I'm not necessarily seeing the fight like a lot of you guys do. Don't get me wrong. I know there's some of you guys that are on Nate like I am. I'm taking Nate Diaz here. I think this fight is basically a pick'em. This fight's going to go either way. The value is on Nate Diaz. If you're getting him anywhere from plus 130 and up, for those of you guys that grab that plus 170, shout out to you guys. Any of you guys that grab them up there in the plus 150, plus 140 even, you can still get them now. That's value. Look at Nate Diaz in his last bout. The guy was just, he's this guy, man, he's a little bit of a different type of fighter, but this guy is very professional in a lot of ways. You saw the shape that he came in his last fight against Anthony Pettis, absolutely ripped. This guy takes such good care of his body. His cardio is just superb. His boxing is very crafty, underrated. His jiu-jitsu is up there with the best of them in the division. Jorge Masvidal, this guy, you know, he's lost a lot of fights, man. Don't forget, this guy's lost a lot of fights. I know that a lot of them were close decisions and whatnot, but you know, Jorge Masvidal is coming in hot with that flying knee on Ben Askren. Yeah, it was entertaining. It was spectacular. But maybe don't look too much into that, because that's not how this fight's going to take place. Nate Diaz ain't going anywhere. This is going to be a 5-round war. You know, Jorge Masvidal does have good cardio, so he'll be able to hang in there with him. But Nate Diaz is going to be the bigger fighter in there. He's going to have that long, lanky frame. I could see him hanging on Jorge Masvidal the same way he did to Anthony Pettis. Throwing the knees, maybe gets this fight down to the ground. We'll see some jiu-jitsu exchanges. I think Nate Diaz clearly has the better jiu-jitsu in my mind. You know, the value's on Nate Diaz. I think Nate Diaz is going to have the edge in the boxing too. I know that Jorge has that more like polished type boxing that you see like in an actual boxing ring. You know, he's very tight with his boxing. He looks a little bit more powerful. Nate Diaz just has that MMA type boxing, man, where he's going to throw a couple punches and grab on you, hold on you. Nate Diaz just really has it going on right now. I really do believe that. And some people think they forget, you know, or they think of him as this fighter that was, you know, losing so many fights back in the day. A lot of them were two guys that just kind of out-grappled him, took him down, kicked his legs in the floor, kind of dominated him, slammed him down. You know, those were guys like Rory McDonald, guys that are bigger than him. Don't sleep on Nate Diaz. This guy, he's fucking game. And I think he's going to pull off this fight here, and we're going to get the trilogy bout with him and Conor McGregor. I think it's going to be an epic fight. I think that's what we have going on right now. Of course, this is a close fight. Don't get it twisted. Jorge Masvidal has been looking good. I'm sure he's taken this fight more serious than any other fight that he's had in his career. And he's a very skilled opponent, training at American Top Team, putting in time at American Top Team. That always is going to do wonders for you. But I'm taking Nate Diaz, and I really hope he wins this fight. I want to see that trilogy with McGregor. And I think Nate Diaz wears on Masvidal. I think he has better cardio. And I think in the later rounds, he's going to wear on Masvidal and just kind of outpoint him. I think the crowd will be rooting for Nate Diaz as well. I think that might play a little bit of an edge in regards to the judges. I think Nate Diaz is the bigger name. People want to see that trilogy bout. Sometimes that plays a factor. You know, we'll have to stay tuned to see how this all plays out here. But yeah, I'm going Nate Diaz, and that's where the value is all day. There's no way you're touching these -170, -160s on Jorge Masvidal. That's the bad move. It's a bad move right there, guys. Don't do that. I mean, if you're feeling it, if you really feel Masvidal, go for it. I think long-term, that's not the route to go, though. So that's going to wrap up UFC 244. I'm really looking forward to this fight card. It's a red carpet event for the teller. As always, when you have a big card like this, you know, the casual fans start crawling out of the corners like cockroaches. My phone's blowing up. You know, people, oh, you watching the Nate Diaz fight this weekend, this and that. So the teller always has to get a little red carpet event going on, the friends and the family. But you guys know what it's really about. It's about making money on these fights. That's what we're here to do. And, you know, whether it's a big event or a small event, it's the same thing. It's just casual business for us. Luckily for us, there's definitely spots to make money on this card. And I'm already targeted in on one play, a very big play on one play. And I'm looking into 2 other possible plays. So, you know, if you guys want to team up with the teller, you guys know I always say it, you know, just inquire, message me here on YouTube, DM me on Instagram. It's the best way. And, you know, I'm always available to let new people join the team, and, you know, we can make money together. Overall in the year, I've put up ridiculous amounts of numbers. You can pull them up, third-party tracked. Made a crazy amount of money this year, and I expect it to be like that next year and the next year and the next year. Long-term results is what it's all about. You know, if you're not making money and you're betting on fights, man, what are you guys doing? You guys got to be patient. You got to be structured. You can't be reckless with your bets. You got to do it the right way. You know, some people can't handle it, and it's sad to see, man. I know certain guys that are betting on every fight, blowing their entire paychecks. I've seen some scary things, man. I know guys that lost $100,000 in a year, just not being able to be structured with their betting style. So betting on everything, baseball, football, you can't do that, guys. For those of you guys that make money betting, you guys know what I'm talking about. Be disciplined and make money long term like the teller does. And all right, guys, comment below, man. Let's engage. You know, we still got some time leading up to this amazing fight card. Enjoy fight week. You know, we got the UFC embedded videos getting put up. And you know, on that note, the teller is gonna sign out. So signing out, the teller.